Hey everyone, today's review will be on the second season of Vikings Valhalla. I did watch the first season of the show and I'll try and do a review on that season at some point later on. I'm not sure when, but I'll try to get to it at some point, as I may do more videos on this show. I did not watch like the full entirety of the first show of Vikings. I watched bits and pieces of it here and there on YouTube, and I can't remember if I tried to watch full episodes. I'm not certain. I can't really remember at this moment. But like I said, I didn't watch the full show of it. I just watched bits here and there. As to season two, it was I wasn't sure where the season was going to go. Following season one, I was wondering like what would follow up, and some parts I was really surprised by. At the end of season one, Forkbeard coming in to rescue Kattegat from being attacked by Olaf and his army. I gotta say, there were certain parts that somewhat made sense to me, but others didn't. Like Forkbeard sparing Olaf to protect his grandson. I guess that was like a calculated like move and risk on Forkbeard's side, but with Forkbeard sparing Olaf, I don't think that was the right move. I mean, Olaf, he's as Jorundir called him, he's a tyrant. He's intolerant. He's bigoted. He hates the Vikings who believe in the old ways, who worship the old gods. And unfortunately, that's something that's partly the case with like Christianity throughout different points in its history. Unfortunately, still now, some people who follow Christ, or say they follow Christ, are intolerant and hateful towards people who believe in other gods or who follow like other religions, even the ones who follow even the religions who believe in the same God as Christianity. But I guess like Forkbeard thought Olaf would have been, I guess, was like a calculated risk because he had to go help his son Canute fight the Vens, I believe. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right or remembering that right, but for some of these names, I'm going to say I probably won't pronounce right, and I'm sorry about that. But Algifu, I'm sorry, I don't think I'm pronouncing it right, but leaving her in as regent of Kattegat and Olaf as protector of her and her family, and specifically of Spain. I mean, I know like Forkbeard had Olaf's son Magnus, had him at his mercy and everything, but even though he promised to like raise Magnus as like one of his own blood, but even though I think Forkbeard is a Christian, but like more like Canute or Harold, I thought maybe, even though he was, I guess you could say he's rough around the edges, but I thought he would have been like smart enough or wise enough to realize Olaf would not have been a good choice to protect his family, but specifically because of Olaf's like warmongering and wanting to wipe out pagans or people or the Vikings who believe in the old ways. It's hard for me to grasp that decision. Well, I do think that as to Olaf, I guess like they wanted to keep him on just a little bit longer because he's one of the main villains of the show, or was. But he's a good villain. You really love to hate him. Like keeping like a man who wants to slaughter like a large part of the Viking population as like protector and teacher to his grandson, to make him a good king and a good Viking, I don't think was the right move. I mean, I thought like with Canute and Harold, he would have been, even though he doesn't believe in the old gods, I thought he would have been, maybe open or like smart enough to realize that having having different peoples who believe in different ways or different gods, it would have been wiser for them to be at peace rather than have someone in a position of power, whether he was a prisoner or not, guide a king to literally hunting and killing pagans, people who believe in old ways. Because at one point, Sweyn tells his mother that they were people who believed in the old ways were heathens, and this, was a problem. I mean, I guess like maybe like the writers wanted to keep him on throughout the season. I mean, I can understand why if you want to keep like a certain villain for a certain amount of time, it works, and eventually Olaf dies, and I'm still kind of surprised that that he like, I guess he that he died, because I mean, you have certain antagonists and certain like shows and franchises that last a long time because they add a lot to the story in it. I mean, I'm not familiar with like a lot of these historical individuals and figures. I mean, I can't say like how long they lived and everything. Like I've looked up like them on like Wikipedia or something in regards to like who they were and everything, but I don't know like their whole like stories, their entire like life story. So I can't say or like how long they lived per se, but in like what they shows, maybe sometimes they embellish or like add more to the show than maybe what happened in history, or possibly because everything that happened, maybe some of it was lost to time, or maybe some things that happened may vary from story to story. So I guess it's the matter of like embellishing or like tweaking the story in certain ways. But I'm like I said with Olaf, he did add to the story in the sense that he was a antagonist who the kind that you love to hate, because he's a bigot, he's a tyrant, he's a butcher. I mean, whether you follow Christ or not, like the matter of someone who's seeking the death of an entire group of people because they don't believe in the same God you do, that's obviously a bad guy. That's a villain. Olaf does affect the protagonist. He affects his brother. He affects Euphrates, obviously, not just them, but made like the population of those who believe in the old ways, which is really defining to his character, because he moves along the story in the sense like he is one of the forces that the protagonists have to overcome. Olaf, I'm glad he died. Part of me thought that he would last a little longer than he did, but I'm glad that at least like Freydis was the one to kill him, because she was defender of the faith, or keeper of the faith, defender of the old ways and of the people who believe in the old gods. It was good to see her defeat him. Obviously needed to die, not just because of the threat he posed to Freydis, but the entire population of the people who believe in the old ways. And Olaf, in the first season, he's called Sea Wolf, and he's called Dog. Olaf is not a wolf or a dog. He is calling him either one of those is an insult to wolves and dogs, because he's not honorable. He's not like empathetic. He's not the kind of person or character that really fits like the spirit of a wolf or a dog. I mean, Freydis, I think, as we see in season 2 at the beginning, in a river she sees a reflection of a wolf, and the ancient one, or I don't know his name, but he asked her if she felt threatened, and she said she was surprised or startled, but she didn't feel threatened. So I'm thinking that Freydis, the wolf, was her animal spirit or her guiding spirit, because she is more true of a wolf than Olaf is. She cares about others. She's ferociously brave in defending herself and others. You can get the sense that she is more true of of a wolf than Olaf was, because I think it's reflected in the show that maybe in some way, I guess, like with the scene of them, or the altering scenes of them praying to their respective gods, that there are maybe two sides of the same coin, maybe, or it's like the old story or saying like the two wolves within you, which I'm a bit. I guess that comes to mind because of them both being afraid of seeing the wolf in the river and the reflection, and Olaf, unfortunately, being called a wolf. Freydis, like I said, her spirit or her guiding spirit, I believe, is a wolf, because she is a wolf in spirit. She's a Viking at heart, a shield maiden, or what was it called? A Gudja. I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong. She leads her pack, she fights for her pack, and she fights the false wolf, I guess you could say. I think part of the season was Freydis's, like I guess journey of redemption, because she blames herself from running from Kattegat when Olaf was taking it over, and she understandably feels guilty, like she left like the people there, because when she promised to protect Kattegat and its people. And I'm not saying like she was bad or not for running. I mean, if you were in that situation, you don't know what you do. I mean, maybe you say you like stay and fight, but if it came to it, you run, or vice versa. You don't really necessarily know what you do in a situation like that. But it doesn't that doesn't help Freitas. She's still very she still feels very guilty over leaving. And with Jomsburg, she perhaps sees it as a way of redeeming herself and also trying to put things right. Like with Uppsala destroyed by that butcher Cora and his band of butchers, I guess she thinks that she needs to redeem herself, not just in her eyes, but also in the eyes of her people and perhaps and perhaps the old gods. So this her journey through this season, I thought was understandable, and I think was really fitting for her because in her eyes, in her mind, in her heart, she needed to redeem herself for what she saw as a failure. Well, I'm not going to say, like I said, I'm not going to say Olaf's death was maybe anticlimactic or not, but it was really fitting for Freydis to kill him. Maybe it wasn't just to redeem herself for what happened to Kattegat, but to avenge those who had died at Olaf's hands and the hands he commanded, but also those who would have died at his hands and the hands he commanded. One part that that I'll briefly talk about this is the divide between the Vikings, between Christianity and those who believe in the old gods. Is tearing the Vikings apart. This hatred for either side has been is like a rot that's like corrupting. It's like the Viking world from within that's slowly eating away and destroying it. You have individuals like Olaf who want to destroy the other side completely. There is no mercy, there's no compassion, there's no understanding. But you have individuals like Harold, even though he believes in Christ, he believes in peace and cooperation between both sides. You have those who believe in the old gods like Freydis who want to preserve and protect the old ways because them slowly as they're slowly dying off, as has been mentioned by random characters and like leading characters in the series that want to preserve their way of life. That's something that they see as a threat from Christianity, or just want to keep it alive and thriving like Freydis, even though she had a hatred of Christians because of what happened to her from a Christian in before like the season before the show began. But as in the end, the last episode, she just wants peace. Even though she sees individuals like Olaf as a threat, she wants peace between the people because she knows like what it has done of all the death and destruction of the Viking world. She sees that through her experiences and what happens to others, that peace is better than war in the sense of like keeping the Viking world together and whole. In this show, Freydis is my favorite character, and I don't want to say necessarily that the other characters like stories and journeys weren't necessarily less interesting. I guess I could say I was more invested in Freydis' story and where she went. But what happened, like I said, with Harold and Leif was, still important. Like Harold. That's my bad. Harold, you know, is seeking what was promised to him by Canute in the first season. Not just because, even though some see that it is Harold just wanting, power, a crown and everything, and what he goes through leaves his like, in least in the show and everything. Maybe his future uncertain, and like what happens back home, like, to avenge himself against Olaf and the others, but not realizing that Olaf is dead and like a number of his supporters are dead. But his journey to, I guess you could say, to claim his rightful place, it's like leading him to something that he is uncertain about. And Leif, he continues to live a life of tragedy and uncertainty. Like he lost, Liv was lost in the first season at that monster Olaf's hands, and he comes to love another woman in season two, Miriam, and unfortunately loses her. There's two women he loved that's basically broken him. I mean, he tries to hide it, but he was a broken man when he lost Liv. I mean, he still he still cared about his sister and Harold and everything. But with Miriam, he like started like those broken pieces, like the hurt part of him started to heal. But losing her, another woman that he loved, just made him, even more of a shattered, like a broken person, a broken man. It wasn't just the women, like relation to him was the tragedy, and these two women, who had lives, personalities, importance to their own personhood and to like their own stories. And I can't remember like the trope, but like it's the matter of women being killed or dying that affects like a male protagonist or a male character. I can't say if that's really what's going on here, but it could be. I mean, maybe it's not intentional. I mean, I don't know like the stories of these women. I don't know if they're actually like creations of the show or if they were genuine historical individuals or figures. It's just in some ways, I guess maybe they felt more like they were more likely to like add to like Leif's character and his story maybe than their own. Like it's sort of like it feels like their losses and their deaths feel like more of like a tragedy in connection to Leif than just themselves as individuals. I mean, I'm not saying like to discredit like say the character like Leif, the character Leif's pain. Obviously, he's depressed and broken because of the losses of these two women that he loved. I mean, it's I guess, like I said, like it's in fiction, you have like women characters die and like they affect like the story and the personality and the character of the leading male character or a certain male character. I can't say for 100% if that's what's going on here or not, but part of me feels that way and part of me doesn't because I do think like with Liv and Miriam, they had like their own stories and everything. It's just I still part of me feels like it's like their part in the stories was also mainly to like affect Leif, but I can't really say that for certain. It's just the tragedy of these women dying is just like heartbreaking whether or not like it affects Leif or not. It just feels like it's maybe more to affect Leif than like the effect these women have on the story or their stories like being ended in tragic ways. A standout character for this season and for this season alone was Jornder. His experiences and his story arc and plot line, his purpose in the story, was really tragic. He tried to help Fredes and like the refugees from like the Christian onslaught, and that Assad Herricker, inflicts like his tyrannical will on Jornder and the others there. I mean, Jornder tries to help Fredes and the others. He loses one hand. He's exiled. He basically lost really everything. Losing a hand and like being exiled from your home and from your people, understandably, like would have broken really anyone. And yet he tries to help Fredes. He tries to like build a bridge between the people of Jomsburg and the refugees there, and he tricks Olaf and his men into attacking Jonsberg, and though he dies in defending his home, he's able to help assure victory against Olaf and these butchers. Like he lost a hand, he was exiled, but he still defended his home valiantly. And even though he died at the hands of one of the men he killed, in return, you see that he really cared about his home, his people, and not just his people, but people who believed in the old ways that connected them to one another. He died defending his people and those who would have been slaughtered at the hands of Olaf and his men. And like I said, he was a standout character this season. This season was really compelling. You had like a lot of stuff going on. Maybe some parts I wasn't invested in as much, but there was a lot here that I really thought that really added to the show. I mean, Fredes is my favorite character. Her story and like the actress who played her was really compelling and really great. Like seeing her like try to build up what I guess you could say she lost, come back stronger, and be able to bring down Olaf and his men, was really, really something. I mean, like I said, I'm still kind of surprised Olaf died this season, but if he should have died anyway, I think it should have been at Fredes' hands. Though, like I said, Forkbeard sparing him, I still don't think that was the right decision, but I guess for Olaf to die at Freydis' hands, I guess maybe I can like stomach it, I guess you could say. But there's a lot going on and this season. I wasn't sure what was gonna happen, but I was disappointed with some parts. Like Svein, he was like too easily manipulated by Olaf and his men. Some of the acting and the line delivery wasn't really great, but I still think this season did really well. Like I said, I was really invested in Freydis' story. Her actress did really good. Like there was a lot of great emotional acting from her, and I thought this season, I think despite my uncertainties about the season, I still think it was a pretty solid season. I mean, Obviously, there are drawbacks here and there, but I think overall, I think the season did well. But let me know what you think in the comments down below. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. I'll be trying to come out with more videos when I can. Once again, I hope you like this video, and thank you for watching.